Hey everybody, this is Alan Arnett. Just want to give a quick intro. This is my interview with Ryan Mitchell on his Everest Summit on May 23rd, 2024. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, everybody. Alan Arnett here with another podcast and the blog on alanarnett.com. It is Thursday, June 6th, 2024, and Ryan Mitchell Moore. Ryan Moore, Ryan Mitchell. People get confused by your name. You know that, don't you?
We're just going by Ryan Mitchell.
Ryan Mitchell. There you go. Hey, first off,
Thank you.
big applause. I applaud on behalf of the literally thousands of people that have been following you, if not hundreds of thousands, or maybe it'll be millions one day. Well done, my friend.
We
Just
made it.
absolutely well done.
Yeah, we made it. It's definitely changed a lot since, well, I mean, definitely way better at mountaineering, I guess, since our last call. Learned a ton while on Everest. So,
Yep, it's a mountain that'll teach you a lot if you let it do it.
yeah.
So, all your fingers and toes.
Yes. I'm not
All
going to show
right.
the toes. You asked me that last time on our little debriefing call. I'm not going to show them.
Come on, show me. Take a picture of them. Show them to me. Come on, come
After.
on. You know, was it hard or easy? What,
Hard.
what hard? What was
You gotta expect it. It's gonna
what?
be
What
hard.
were? Did it? Was it harder than what you expected it to have been?
Well, I was very confident in myself. I had trained, I had put in the work in, and I knew I was, unless there was some sort of unforeseen circumstance, like I got really sick or the weather was really bad, I was very confident I was gonna summit, just because some of the stuff I had done in my training, um, it gave me that level. I wasn't overly confident, and I was prepared to turn back if I had to,
Yeah.
but I knew it was going to be hard. But I've done hard things, and I was prepared to do hard things. So, yeah,
Was it fun?
yes, yeah. It was a. I want to. I wish I was back right now. It's hard to leave, but I wanted to go home really bad. But it's very hard
Right.
to leave that. And it's of course it's type 2 fun. You look back and you're thinking, it was so fun being at Camp 4 and seeing those views when you really felt awful at the time.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's a great quote by Thornton Wilder that says, "An adventure is when you're in the middle of it, you pray to God to get you home alive, and when you're home, you pray to God to go back and do it again."
Yeah, it sums it up perfectly.
So let's take a quick trip back down memory lane. We first, in the last time we did a podcast, we talked about this. We won't belabor it, but in December 22, you and I first made contact and talked about planning Everest for this year, 24. And so, kind of quickly go through the training climbs that you did in preparation for Everest.
Yeah, so when I went to you, I knew nothing. That's why I needed someone to actually coach me and teach me things. But um, first, we went to Ecuador to get some high altitude, kind of see how body worked and everything. So did Pasachoa, some acclimatization, hikes and everything. Building up to Chimborazo. Didn't end up getting Chimborazo. We got Iliniza, but that was way before. But yeah, didn't get Chimborazo. Turned back probably 3 hours from the summit, just because I wasn't in shape yet and I wasn't prepared for it. The weather was pretty bad, but I think if I had felt better, then I would have been able to get through it. So that was a little bit disheartening, but we were still very early into training, so wasn't gonna let that drive me away. A few months went by. Now it's time for Denali. So this is a pretty big jump. All these people say Denali's harder than Everest and everything. Um, we got to Denali, same thing. 3 hours away from the summit, we had to turn back because of bad weather. But we would have made it this time. We all felt good. My whole team felt good of our 8 clients, 4 guides. That was an amazing experience. Denali's favorite, maybe my favorite mountain. I think Everest tops it, but it's a
Yeah,
great climb.
it's a
So
great climb.
yeah, that was amazing to get the cold weather experience, the winter camping, literally everything you do out there you'll need on Everest. So it's a great little practice climb if you want to consider it a practice climb. And then the other most considerable one would be Aconcagua, which is in February before Everest, so pretty close. Not sure if it would actually benefit you in terms of, red blood cells, having that still from Aconcagua onto Everest, but gets you to 23,000 feet. And we did summit that one, my first mountain that I actually summited. that was a big expedition, which was awesome. Um, and yeah, I mean, felt really good on that one. So that put me in a good spot. Going to Everest, pretty confident. And then it
Yeah.
was Everest, time for Everest.
What's interesting is throughout that journey, we often talk about you don't know what you don't know. And through every one of those experiences, be it the Chimbo turning around, the Denali getting weathered out, Aconcagua, wasn't necessarily technical, but like you say, it was 7,000 meters. So slowly you're building this body of experience that in your body, physically, your physical body is also learning how to respond to the lower levels of oxygen. So tell us about what you did on Mount Washington. Well, one of the things that for the listeners that Ryan and I talk about are doing these, I call them back-to-back days or extra credit days or suffer days. But basically, you go up and down the same route as many times as you can in one day, or you do like on one day you do 10 hours, and the next day you do 10 hours. And so the whole idea is to stress your body and to help you understand that you can survive doing this. Tell us about your Mount Washington experience that one day.
Yeah, so I've been doing the extra credit days for a while, minimum 12 hours out there, just, every once in a while. But I decided I had done Mount Washington multiple times before. It was the first mountain I actually climbed, and that's how I fell in love with mountaineering, was climbing Mount Washington. It's like a little mountaineer's playground. It's just in New Hampshire. All these West Coasters, you know what? I like my Mount Washington. But yeah, I wanted to do it twice in one single day. So I started at like 4 a.m., I think. I woke up at like 2:30 because it's a little bit of a drive from where I was staying. And then I just started going up. I just had a pretty light pack just with stuff that I needed. Went up and down twice. And then I didn't hit 12 hours yet. I was like, I can't just not hit the 12-hour day. So I decided to go up one more quarter of it just to get to 12 hours. And I think I topped out at I wasn't going for 10,000 feet, but I ended up getting 10,500 feet in a day, which was pretty awesome. And that was cool because, you'd go up once and then you would come down. And I was out there really early. I was the first one. And it was I love that feeling. The sun is rising,
Yeah,
you're breaking
yeah.
trail. And then you come back down. And then I'm coming back up, and the same people that saw me coming down are like you were just up here. What's wrong
You
with you?
lost? Are you lost?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah,
Yeah,
days like that are just awesome. That's a great thing to implement into training because like you said, even with the 10-hour back-to-back days, that's something that you could really have
yeah,
happen to you on a mountain. If you get, usually you wouldn't see 10-hour days on Everest. I think the longest day was for me, well, maybe besides Summit Day, but besides Summit Day, outside of that would probably be through the Khumbu Icefall up to Camp 2. But you never know, maybe you went really slow and you ended up taking 8 hours on that. And then the next day you have to take advantage of a weather window. Now you're going up another 8 hours. So it's having that mentally. And if you've done it outside of the mountain, then it gives you a lot more reassurance to be able to do it inside the mountain.
of all the training that you did, thinking about your performance on Everest, which was just absolutely stellar. We'll talk about your 5 hour summit from South Col to the summit in 5 hours, which is silly fast. Um, what part of your training do you think made the biggest difference on helping you be comfortable on Everest?
So comfortable in terms of kind of how I'm physically performing or technical wise, because I live in Massachusetts, so I don't get much technicals.
Yeah.
I don't get much technical training. I wish I did. When I go up to New Hampshire, I get that a little bit on Mount Washington, but it's nothing crazy. But I think I learned pretty fast, so I was able to really lock in on the fixed line stuff training that we were doing. Garrett's great with that. He really does make sure that you go up there knowing exactly what you're going to need to do. But in terms of actually being able to physically perform, which is huge because you're going to be able to learn better, perform better just with technicals if you are feeling better. It was definitely I think it was really just stacking on training day after day. See, I only went hiking 2 days a week, but it was for minimum 6 hours on,
Yeah.
if I wasn't doing a 12-hour day, and I would have a 35 to 50 pound pack. 2 days doesn't seem like a lot, but outside of that, that's just because I have other stuff that I wanted to do. I have my YouTube channels that I wanted to work on, and I couldn't be doing 6-hour days every day. So I'd be doing strength training, running outside of that. but and a lot of step ups. The step ups are, I need to get back into those, but I haven't gone to that recovery part yet. But yeah, like step ups for an hour with the pack in my basement. It's a dungeon, but it's really just stacking those things. Like my legs never felt well. Um, and they were always pretty much fatigued, but I would continue to train through that and push through that. I used to be able to do a lot of backflips. I can still do backflips, did a few on Everest, but I just wouldn't do them while I was training. So I was like, I'm going to eat it if I backflip. My legs are just not strong enough to do that. So I think really making them adapt to situations like that and stacking and stacking and stacking, uh, it's just gonna your body just adapts to it. It's then it's gonna be much more prepared for when you're up there.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you stress your body lower, then again, you prepare yourself for that mental toughness as well as, psychologically figuring out that, okay, I know my body can be stressed. And, it's really interesting. We don't know how deep our reservoirs are until we have the moment to test them. And that's kind of what you were doing, not only at home, but also then obviously on these other mountains. We need to give a shout out to Garrett Madison. You climb with Madison Mountaineering on both, I guess it was on Aconcagua, and he had the guest guide of none others than Ed Viesters. You
Yeah.
realize you climbed with Ed Viesters, right?
Yeah. Well, unintentionally, I was having some problems with my foot, so I had to move to the next expedition, but it worked out well.
Yeah, you and Ed, I think, bonded really closely. But shout out to Garrett for running an excellent expedition.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got it down.
So one of the things that people asked me about while you were doing this were your YouTube videos. So let's talk a little bit about that. Again, background is that Ryan has done a Minecraft video for how many years? 2 or 3, 4 years?
I'm doing Minecraft videos full time for 4 years.
Yeah, and again, full disclosure, we talked about this the first time. You don't have a trust fund. Your parents aren't rich. Nobody gave you this money. You earned this money, and you self-funded the entire thing. In fact, you did a video about how much money that you spent and how you spent it. But more to the point on the technology, tell us so first off, what cameras did you use?
So I from to base camp, I did bring my Sony A7S III, which I was just recording on the Trek. Past base camp, I did not take this. We can go into that in a second, kind of with traveling light and everything. But besides that, past base camp, all I did was iPhone 14 Pro. The camera is phenomenal on it. And then GoPro Hero 11 Black. Just kept that on my helmet for when I couldn't use my phone. But I tried using my phone every chance I got. And that was it at past base camp.
And what about batteries? How did you keep the iPhone charged?
So if you turn your iPhone, you turn off like roaming services or whatever. Then when they track you, even though your phone is off, if you turn those off, turn it to airplane mode and turn off cellular data, even though you're not going to get any, the battery lasts 3 times longer. So I would just be really conservative with that. I had a power bank that maybe could charge it twice. And then worst case scenario, I had a Goal Zero solar panel, which on the sunny days, especially in Camp 2, for example, the sun is just blasting off onto you in every direction. Have my phone hooked up to that for a little bit, it would get to 100%. So I was really just being conservative, and having the solar panel is huge. If you're in stormy weather, obviously it could be bad, but you're not going to be moving in that anyways if it's really harsh. And then for the GoPro, I actually brought an excessive amount of batteries for that. So I ended up not using as many batteries as I thought, because if you press a button, it'll turn on its own, and you just turn the button off. So just being really conservative. I wouldn't record anything that I didn't need to record. Everything was off when I wasn't recording it.
Well, can you give a percentage guess of how much was on the iPhone versus the GoPro footage?
Like which one lasted longer?
No, no. In terms of like, did you 80% of the footage that you published on YouTube was on the
Oh.
iPhone versus, I don't know, 80/20, 60/40, 50/50?
I would say once we got higher up, it was definitely more of the GoPro. When we were doing the trek, I didn't use the GoPro at all, because
Right.
you can use your phone really easily. But once you get onto like the Lhotse face, or it's actually a steep part where you need to be holding onto the rope or doing something like actual action, then you need to use the GoPro. So I'd say it started being like 50-50 up higher. And then on summit day, it was probably 80 GoPro, 20 phone.
And what about your gloves and getting finger dexterity and the touch screen and all that?
Well, I would usually, which isn't the best idea, but I would usually take my gloves off to record,
Hey, we
which
talked about that.
I would only do when it was good. But this is what I was on Summit Day. I would make sure I would have I would wear my mittens at night, which it wasn't that cold, but like Garrett was wearing just his large gloves, not mittens. But I just throw a hand warmer in there, so I would just be really fast, record, put my hand back in, and it would warm back up. So it's kind of just this constant cycle. But yeah, I mean, it would be too much. It would take too long to use it with the liners or anything because I just
Yeah,
thought it would be better if I'm just like, okay, quick,
yeah, yeah. And
and when I get
then
the chance.
very briefly, how did you edit and then upload? Talk us through that briefly.
Yeah, so I record all the footage. Anything I recorded on the GoPro, I would just export to my phone. Made it really easy, the app that GoPro has. And then I had just an app on my phone. It's CapCut. I would throw them all in there. And then I guess what the process would be was I'd throw all the clips in there. I would go through, trim up stuff that I think in my head that I'm going to use or not, that I think is, too much. 'Cause sometimes I'd record like 3-minute videos of me walking through the same part of the ice fall.
Yeah.
I'm not going to include that entire thing. So I'm going to cut it down. And then I would find parts that I think need more explanation and kind of need to be composed together more. And I would just do a quick little voiceover. I wouldn't script it out or anything. I would just watch it myself. You can tell sometimes in the videos I'm looking at myself and I'm seeing this like, oh, I remember this now. I'm just gonna commentate about this. And then I would do the intro, just a quick little recap of what we did that day, throw some B-roll over, and then export it out and upload it. I really didn't think much. Usually I think a ton on my videos. I overthink them, but I didn't have any time to do that, which I think was really beneficial. I was just like, okay, I need to get on to the next one.
One of we'll touch on this in just a bit later on, but one of the things people commented on was that your commentary, it became, I'm not sure if sophisticated or polished is the right term, but it became apparent that from the time you began doing the videos to your summit and then the descent, man, your use of terminology, you became more comfortable talking about stepping over crevasses and looking at the Bergstrums, and you pronounce things correctly. And I mean, just overall, at the end, it was very, very polished. And I must say, I think you did a fantastic job of balancing your overlay commentary versus what you were doing in real time. Because often people, and I'm the king of this, you talk way too much. So you did a good job of letting most of the time the images speak for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I learned a lot out there. Yeah, you can't expect to go out to any mountain and expect not to know everything.
But you also learned a lot. You leveraged a lot from your Minecraft videos that you've been doing, and also other YouTube videos. So you leverage that knowledge as well.
Yeah, so I felt comfortable in front of the camera and I kind of knew what I was doing.
You're
I
in that.
you can see the videos got a lot better. I didn't do any voiceovers at the start, but then I have some like friends that were saying like, oh, I think like maybe like you should do a little bit of voiceovering, which I didn't want to do initially because I wanted it to be really raw and authentic. But then I was thinking like, oh, it would probably be easier to follow along and it could still be raw and authentic. I just didn't want to script anything.
Well, congratulations on the video production. I've seen so many comments, both on your channel and on my stuff, that talks about how, this one person made a comment I saw just before we got on, said, I don't know why companies spend, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to send professional camera crews. Look what Ryan did with a GoPro. I mean, so you impressed a lot of people just, following that simplicity and that authenticity tenets to what you did. So let's talk about the other gear that you may have used. You used that Homali down suit. I assume that worked out pretty well for you.
Yeah, it's also the main other one that people usually use is the Mountain Hardwear one,
Yeah,
which Garrett was saying, oh, because he's like a Mountain Hardwear athlete, but
yeah.
mine's is lighter than his, which could be said to be not as warm, but my body runs pretty. I guess like if I get warm really easily, so it was nice to have a little bit lighter of a down suit, and also the ventilation has nice pockets that are really convenient. Obviously pretty worked pretty well, I would say. Yeah.
How about your boots? What you use for your 8,000 meter boots?
Classic Olympus Mons. My toes were never really cold at all. Those worked really well. I like those. I have like a really thick toe bale. I don't know. I think when we they have like different ones. They have ones where you can
Yeah.
put the ski boot on, and then they have the ones where you don't. I have the one with the ski boot, so it made it hard for the crampons. My crampons were so I figured out a way to get them on, but they were so tight on the boot because that toe bale is huge.
That's where they're supposed to be, so they don't fall off when you're on
Yeah.
the Lhotse face or someplace. Well, all right, so great. So now let's actually go through the climb of Mount Everest, and we're going to kind of go through the various sections. Um, Tell us about the trek. So we obviously you fly into Kathmandu, you meet your team, then you fly to Lukla, but then you began taking those first steps toward Pakdeen from Lukla. I mean, and actually this is one of the only times you're going downhill. Well, other than when you go between right below the monastery at Pengboche in that area. But what did it feel like trekking in Nepal?
It was seeing the culture and everything. I do want to go back one day. That's like one of the main reasons why is the trek is so awesome. That's why I tell people, even if you don't want to climb Everest, do the trek at the very least, because it is so amazing. It's a whole different experience. Everyone's so nice out there, and the villages are, you stay in these little tea houses, and while you're trekking up, you stop for ramen noodles and tea and stuff. So it's really nice experience. I don't really remember like Lukla to Farache. For some reason, that whole like section kind of like got lost in my mind. Like there was a village called Phak Ding. I just don't remember. I remember the village, but I just don't remember what's before that and then the trek after. But yeah.
I think that's called sensory overload. Um, so before we go on, I want to come back really quickly on the technology stuff because I can just hear somebody listening to us and saying, "Oh my gosh, look at these guys! Bloggers and videographers, all this stuff. Hey, you're there to climb the mountain. And all this other stuff is a distraction. Did you find filming it a distraction?"
No, if anything, I actually found, I mean, even throughout the entire thing, even the trek all the way to the summit, I actually found it kept me in check.
Ah,
I think it keeps your mind occupied, and when your mind, it kind of builds up momentum for you. So I think it was actually more motivating for me when I had that, and I would wake up every day and I'd be like, okay, I got to go like film now. Like it kept me in a healthy mindset, I would say. Because I couldn't just go. I didn't want to go on camera all moping around and stuff. And then once you get going, it's kind of like when you're talking to somebody. Like even on the podcast, like sometimes you'll start off like slow, but then you really get into like your brain starts working again, and you get the blood flowing, the gears grinding. So that's how I kind of felt with the recordings. I don't think it was ever a distraction, and I never made it to the point where it would be dangerous. If I ever felt like it was too dangerous to take my phone out, I wouldn't do it. I would hit the GoPro, and if for some reason I couldn't hit the GoPro or it wasn't the right time, I just wouldn't do it.
just let it go. Yeah, yeah. Somebody else asked me, "How did you use the GoPro and put your hood on your top of your helmet?" But that's okay.
Yeah, I didn't use. I actually didn't put my hood on Summit Day.
Well, we'll talk about this too because you had really good weather. I mean, just the entire trip. Well, not the
Yeah.
entire trip, but the summit day definitely. So you trek in whatever it was, 6-8 days, and then you arrive into base camp. And so when you're going down along the right on the side of the Khumbu Icefall, and you're walking along that little dirt ridge. I mean, and all of a sudden you see those tents ahead of you. You turn right and go down the glacier, and then you turn left. And you get to that gaudy sign, which I don't like, but anyway. And then you pull into Everest Base Camp, and then you see just how big it is. What did you feel when you're arriving at base camp?
Yeah, it takes like 20 minutes to walk from one end to the other, probably more because it goes on forever. But I was excited to see the camp for sure. And it was just, you just realize the scale of everything. But also at the same time, once we got to base camp, we knew we had to go back down to Lobuche because instead of going through 3 total rotations, including the summit rotation, like most teams do, Garrett climatizes with Lobuche, which I think is like just over 20,000 feet. So we had to go. I knew we had to go back down and then go climb another mountain and then come back up. But yeah, I was like, okay, this is going to be home for a while, so I better get used to it.
What did you? So this is the first time you actually got to see the entire Sherpa team, all the cooks and the cook boys, and I mean, I call it a constellation of experts that it takes to climb Mount Everest these days. And so Tell us about your first interaction with the Sherpas.
So I think the first one, which was appeared in my video a lot, I think we met him in Lobuche, and that was Furba. He's Garrett's lead Sherpa. And I immediately liked him because I knew I wasn't gonna have a personal Sherpa from base camp until the summit day. So I kind of gravitated towards him a little bit just because he ended up being one of our guides. So um but yeah, they're so nice. Like I can't believe I say this to a lot of people, and like being a Sherpa is literally, if not one of the hardest jobs in the world. It's nothing even compares. I mean, the willpower, dedication that these guys have, it's you have to respect them, and you don't realize who you're talking to when you get into base camp, like and what they've done. Like you
Yeah.
just think about that for a second. Like great climbers, great everything. It's hard to kind of wrap your mind around
They're
that.
very they're very inspiring, and they're also very confidence building. Just when you see how just how grounded they are, and for me, it was always being with Kami. There was a sense of I know I'm in good hands. I mean,
Yeah.
something can always happen, but I knew Kami had my back.
They were nice, but they also, you're right, they were always calm, and they felt like they knew what they were doing, which they do know what they're doing, but sometimes things happen, but they never really showed that something was wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So the Khumbu Icefall starts at 17,500 feet at Everest Base Camp. It tops out around 19,500 feet at Camp 1 in the Western Khum. It's 2,000 feet of a frozen, moving river. That thing is alive and is creaking every now and then down. And then to the climber's left, you've got Everest West Shoulder, those hanging seracs. To the right, you've got Nuptse. What was that like?
So yeah, I mean, you just start off at a nice. Well, we left at 2 a.m. to go up for the first time, and then every other time. And then right as you just walk through this path, so you leave your camp, you walk through that path, and then you just step onto the glacier, which was right next to you the whole time, but it obviously gets more severe, and you start going up, and it starts off kind of leisurely. But once you get onto the fixed lines, that's when it starts getting a little bit more sketchy. You're gonna get to the ladders. Personally, for me, I was kind of looking forward to it because I think I talked about this with you before, and I was thinking like it's just such a cool place on Earth. Like there's nowhere else on Earth where you
Right.
can really find something like that. So I really wasn't trying to let it get in my head. Obviously, I'm cautious, and every step, I was watching every single step, and I was making sure I didn't walk off of into a crevasse or something. But yeah, I was very focused, but I didn't want to let it get in my head because, well, if a giant ice tower were to collapse on me, then it is what it is. I couldn't have really done anything about it.
Yeah, not much you can do for those objective
Yeah.
dangers. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you sign up for it, you got to get through, got to get up all the way. And it was really difficult because when you have a pack on too, and I don't know how much I would have had. Like we were carrying a decent amount of gear up, but like I don't know, let's just say 40 pounds, but it gets pretty difficult, like because you're jostling around a lot, and the waist straps will rub up against your hips pretty often. It's not like a consecutive pacing, right? You're constantly going up and down, which I think is one of the most difficult things. And luckily, well, I don't know how it usually is, but there was really only one technical part of it, which was this giant ice wall,
Yeah.
and a lot of lines had built up there. Not on our first time, but the second time it was pretty severe. And yeah, you just have to. It's I don't know how. What would you say? Have you seen videos? It's probably like 50, 60 feet or something.
Yeah, something like that at a 60-degree angle. Yeah.
Yeah. So especially when you have like a backpack on, which I had the second time. The first time they were trying to get people through, so they actually pulleyed up the backpack. But you're just like trying to get up using that as that ascender. That's the hardest part, I would say. But other than that, it's really just a mental thing in there, I think.
Well, we can talk about this briefly, that your pack, you were carrying 30, 40, 45, almost 50 pounds and you carried all your own personal kit, right?
Yes. So all of my like own items I carried up. The first time we did go through the ice fall, I think maybe they had some people going up with tents and stuff, so they took our down suits. But the second time I had everything besides that and left some stuff at camp too. But the heaviest day was going down with everything because you had to collect it on the way down. Also, wag bags which for those who don't know, it's the bags you poop in. Personally, I had quite a bit. I had to collect it as like we collected at Camp 4, and everybody's like, I'm holding off. I'm not going at Camp 4, but I had to go at Camp 4. So we're going down, and you get it at Camp 2, and Furba picked mine up once we got to the waste deposit just to like see how much it was, and it was like 22 kilos, which what did you say, like 48 pounds?
Yeah.
That was the heaviest I had done. But yeah, I didn't have a personal
That,
Sherpa from.
that was your pack, not your poop, not your wag bag.
Well, I think a considerable amount of it was the wag bag. But yeah, it felt a little bit lighter after we threw the waste out. But we were already done at that point. But yeah, I feel like it's just a lot more rewarding when, I mean, it doesn't matter how you really climb. Like climbing Everest, no matter what, to the top is going to be difficult. But I kind of like having that, like a little bit more like self-sufficiency at least. I like carrying my own stuff. Felt just a little bit more rewarding every day, just knowing like, okay, I lugged that thing up all the way through the ice fall, whether it was like 40 pounds, 35. Just like a nice feeling.
Yeah, I like that whole thing of being as self-sufficient as you can. One of the things that Sherpas do, which we always appreciate, is that they're always willing to take an extra bag off, stuff sack or something out of your pack and offload a little bit of pounds. But there's a certain amount of, I think, resilience that builds in you by being more self-sufficient and carrying as much as you can. So you get through the ice fall. It was a little bit circuitous this year. Didn't go quite as straight as it has in the previous years. Sherpas icefall doctors had a tough time getting that initial route in, but they finally did. It was kind of closer to the west shoulder than I think most people would have liked, but thankfully nothing came off, at least while climbers were there this year. And then you get into the Western Cwm. It's called the Valley of Silence because it's just surrounded by these icy walls that absorb, not only does it absorb the sound, but also reflects the sun.
Yeah, that was so on our second rotation up, that was definitely my hardest day out of the entire climb, even compared to summit day, because I came down with some sort of cold. So we're going from, on the second rotation, you don't stop at Camp 1. On the first one you do, you stay at Camp 1, which is a very lackluster camp. It sucks, but there's nothing there. But you go all the way from base camp to Camp 2, which it could be considered one of the hardest days regardless. But I came down with a cold because we went down to some villages before then to rest. So I started feeling that initial weakness, and then I was kind of okay while we were going through the ice fall. I felt like I was off, but I was like, okay, it's just a whatever day. Soon as we get into the Western Cwm, the sun comes out, starts reflecting, and like it just hits me so bad. I'm walking through. I mean, you're getting dehydrated now. Now you're going into altitude. Obviously, you're not on oxygen this low, and I'm trying to like keep up with my team, but I have to start like dropping back. I'm just like, yeah, I'll catch back up. I'll be there soon. And I just felt really nauseous, weak, and I felt like I had a portion. I think of like the last like three hours. I just felt like I was gonna throw up the entire time. So I rolled into camp like an hour and a half after everybody else. And I was just like, what is wrong with me? Because you don't know what's really wrong with you if something is going wrong up there. It could be, initial signs of HAPE or haste. You could have just some sort of virus like I did. Maybe you're just having a bad day. So you kind of just have to wait it out and see. Luckily, we had a rest day at Camp 2 the next day. Still felt pretty bad. Actually, I think I felt like worse. And now I was getting congestion. So I started getting the signs that had some sort of virus. And then luckily, the next day we ended up staying another day in Camp 2 because it was just bad weather and looked really windy, and a ton of teams were moving up that day regardless of that weather. So we went the next day, and then I started feeling better, but I was still congested, but I was over the weakness, which is what I cared about.
Yeah. How did you feel when you pulled into Camp 2 and you crawled in that tent? Were you just like a zombie?
Yeah, luckily the tents were like set up already. Like on Denali, you get into camp, you feel awful, then you have to set up your tents, But yeah, they're all set up, and I got in there, and I try not to sleep as soon as I get into a tent because I always think I need water. That's the biggest thing, water, and get some food in. So that's always my first priority. Once that's out of the way, I just crashed.
Yeah. Give yourself permission just to kind of recover. So you
Yeah.
stayed, you went to Camp 2 a couple times. So you on your second rotation, now this is a summit rotation, um, and you're going to go up the Lhotse Face. And this
Yeah.
year, the Lhotse Face was a little bit more difficult than it had been in previous years because the snow, not well, you got a little bit of snow, but also it was really rock hard, icy. How about were there steps kicked in when you went up, or was it still too early?
Yeah, so the first time was right after that. Um, the first time they got a little bit of snow the day
Right.
before, and
Yeah.
and we were glad to see that because it had been so dry. We didn't want to get hit by rock or ice or anything like that. So and I was right behind Furba. We were in the front, and he was kicking in some nice steps, which was nice. But it was still pretty icy, but it wasn't too bad. But yeah, the second time was definitely a lot more icy, and there was a lot more people at the same time. So um, both times were definitely really difficult, and also the Bergschirn. Is that how you
Yep. You got it.
pronounce it? That's a
You
hard
got it,
word.
man. You
But
got it.
that had started melting over. The first time it was much
Huh.
harder though because it
Yeah.
was a lot more icy the first time, and you had to actually go up like kind of like not vertical, of course, but little ice walls. The second time, those had practically melted over, and it was kind of a lot more messy. And then when we were coming down after everything, and they were completely destroyed, but yeah, it was fun. It was the first like actual climb, I felt like.
So let's get in your head a little bit. So you're on your summit push. You're leaving Camp 2 to go to Camp 3, where you'll spend the night, and then you'll head up to the South Col, and then we'll talk about that in a minute. Break that down. But you're on the Lhotse Face. It's at times it's maybe 30 degrees. Other times it kicks up maybe 45. But as you get to the top of Upper Camp 3, sometimes it really kicks up. You got to kind of go up and over some big bumps. Um, but it could be windy, it could be cold, it could be hot, you know. And as you approach, you see the first tents and things. Put us in your head when you're going up there. And in your videos, you kind of talked about, alluded to me, this is not easy. And getting a little tired when you get to that, when you're on that rotation, especially on the summit rotation or else first rotation, we get 7,000 meters, tag it, and come back down. Get us in your head. What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you sensing? Are you struggling, or are you able to take in the beauty?
Yeah, well, Lucy Face was definitely like the hardest thing so far. Um, you do get really hot. That was the big problem for me there. I was never really too cold on it, but like inside of that down suits, because you have to take the down suit up now because you leave all your other layers back pretty much because you want to save weights, and you're going to be using your down suits on the summits, the real summit push, regardless. So you're in that thing like all no matter what, and you can vent it, you can kind of take the top off, but it like destroys you. Like you're just in an oven, it feels like, as you're going up, so dehydrated, going into altitude. On the second, when we were going up for our summit push, we were on oxygen from Camp 2 to Camp 3, which helped a lot. But no matter what, we had a lot of weight actually because we had to move everything up from Camp 2 to Camp 3. So as you're going over those final ice humps, you're going to go all the way up the Lhotse Face. Then you get to those ice humps that you're kind of talking about, the bumps, and like you're really going hard on those. So you have to go over a few of those, and you just hope that Camp 3 is right there at one point. There's also a guy that was getting carried down. I showed this in my
Yeah.
video on the way up, and there's a guy that was getting carried down. So it's like whenever you're going past something like that, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, I guess, to a degree. You see something like that. He was on oxygen or whatever. He was alive. Good thing. I don't know what happened to him after, but
Yeah.
seeing stuff like that, it's like, okay, this is getting real. And then you continue looking up because you can kind of see what's ahead as well. It's like, okay, this is just going to keep going after Camp 3. Camp 3 is just on. Once you finally get to Camp 3, you're excited, but it's not like Camp 2 where it's nice and chill. They have dining tents. No, you're just going to be in this tent that is just on a complete slant. And then right outside of the camp is just another giant ice wall that gets into the Lhotse Face again. Would that be considered the Lhotse Face after Camp 3 too?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Until like the yellow band and everything like that. But yeah, you see that. and then you don't have a rest day. You just get right up there. So you realize you're like really climbing Everest at this point.
Yeah, leaving Camp 3, it gets real because I mean, I think it really kicks up. It's maybe one of the steepest parts until you turn left and cross the yellow band and go across the Geneva Spur. And then you pull into the South Col. There were some pictures that went viral. I mean, not viral, but there got some publicity of a long line of people between Camp 3 and the yellow band. Some videos of that. Did you guys, let's talk about crowds. Was Everest crowded in your opinion, your experience?
Not in my experience, but I saw the crowds. I recorded this in my videos from Camp 2. So that day that we took the rest and also the extra rest day, I could see moving up to Camp 3. And then we saw them move up the next day. It was like one of my teammates said it was a black mamba. And I was like, yeah, it is. Like there's just a whole line. And that's whatever, but that's probably the most viral crowded moments. We saw it from Camp 2, so we're very far away, but those pictures that you see of the crowds, we pretty much saw that from a distance. So seeing that was crazy because you see all the teams going up, but it was also kind of reassuring because, well, we knew that we're behind them. Yeah, we're gonna have to cross paths with them on the way down. But I mean, there was a decent amount of people on the Lhotse face when we were going up, decent amount of people, but it was never overwhelming. We were never like stuck behind more than 5 to 10 people at any given time, I would say. So
Yeah, so I think this, this is a testament to the expedition leaders. There were several of them that kind of lagged and went at the end of the season rather than trying to rush right after the ropes went up on, maybe the 11th, the 12th, the 13th. And you guys were at the end of the entire season, and that allows the crowds to clear out. So again, that's the testament to the experience and the judgment of those expedition leaders that prevent their crews from getting stuck in the masses. So you pull into the South Col. This was something that really stood out to me when you talked about the condition of the South Col. So let's talk about the positive first. You're at almost 8,000 meters, 79999. I mean, you're almost at
yeah.
8,000 meters, 26,000 feet. And were you able to take in the views of, Choyo Yu off to the west and looking at kind of the saddle right there, looking up the triangular face. What a special place.
Yeah. Well, when we rolled in, Camp 3 to 4 for me was pretty. It was a rough one as well.
Mm.
I think one of the main things was, well, it was really hot still. And I think that was when a decent amount of teams summited. I don't know, but when we got there, and I wasn't hydrating enough on the way up. I wasn't eating enough and I wasn't hydrating. Sometimes that gets the best of me. I think like I train fasted at home and I do this stuff, but I think like, okay, I'll be fine until like I feel good right now. I feel fine. I'll get to Camp 4, then I'll worry about it then. I just didn't drink enough water throughout that. So then it hit me pretty bad once we got to Camp 4. So I needed to really like get stuff in my body and then recover. So I wasn't really feeling it when I got there, but yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of cloudy at around that. So we didn't really see views when we got there. And then even when we were coming down, I actually know when we were coming down, it was clear as day. So I got to see it a little bit there. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. I was feeling a little bit down when I got there, but we
Yeah.
had a rest day there as well, but I didn't really leave the tent much.
So one thing that Madison Mountaineering does that's a little unique. There's a couple other teams that do this. Most teams will go from Camp 3 to the Col. They'll pull in at, let's say, noon. They'll try to rest up and then they'll head out for their summit around 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. What Garrett does is you guys spent the night. You went from 3 to the Col. You spent the night. Then you had an entire day. And then you get up. Actually, you left for the summit at what, midnight or something? So, but you had an entire day, almost well over 24 hours, as you said, just to rest. And you're laying there in a sleeping bag on what, half a liter a minute of oxygen and trying to get some sleep, trying to get some more water into you, trying to get some calories into you. But I don't know about you, but I mean, all I wanted to do was just kind of roll over and fall asleep and say, forget it. But that's not the right thing to do. How'd you pass that time?
So I was glad that we had that rest day, 'cause like I said, I was in the trenches a little bit once we got there the day before, but I was sharing a tent with one of my teammates, Tyler, but like I said, I had that cold. So obviously, I do the same thing, of course, and
Get out of here.
all respect to it. But yeah, it was kind of like that. And he was we were trying to figure it out with Garrett and whatnot, but they didn't have any extra tents, so we couldn't do like I just completely quarantined myself. And I was just sniffling at this point. I felt fine, but Garrett takes a bullet and he ends up sharing a tent with me, and then Tyler moves in with the other teammates that we had. So I got Garrett sick, so me and him were kind of just chilling in there the whole time, sniffling and
Thanks for nothing, bro.
coughing. Yeah. Yeah, but he was like, "Oh, it's not gonna stop us from climbing." I was like, "No, it won't." So we were just trying to like recover, and that was the main thing, just drinking, eating. I was actually eating a lot up there. When you're on oxygen, I feel like your appetite comes back
Yeah.
like real a lot. So I was getting those D highs in, getting those RX bars in. I mean, what else did I really do there? There's not, I think I left the tent like 3 times, like go to the bathroom, but I'd make sure to stand up around a little bit, maybe stretch. But you get out of, I wouldn't have my mask on when I go to the bathroom, because that's a little bit, you have to bring the bottle with you, and that's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
struggle. So you get up and you go out there. You kind of deacclimatize when you're on oxygen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you feel it like a lot when you're not on it up there. Then you actually try moving around.
So let's talk about the distasteful side of this, and something that is a serious problem on Mount Everest on both sides. At the highest camps, they tend to be the dirtiest camps. Was that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was saying this in one of my logs. We got to camp 3 on our first rotation. I was looking around. I was like, "Oh, this isn't too bad." I didn't think it was really that like dirty or anything. There was like a few leftover tents and stuff, but really wasn't bad. We come up for our summits rotation, and camp 3's gotten a little bit worse, but I still don't think it's that bad that people have like made it out to be. Then we get to camp 4, and it's really bad. Like you could tell I mean, yeah, like a lot of teams have summited and been up there just recently because we were behind that huge line. But like there was everything, like from like leftover pots, tents that were just chilling there. Obviously nobody was in them. They were broken down. Coke cans, Coke bottles, food left over. And it was really like everywhere once you got into camp. Like you had to step around trash. Luckily, our camp was kind of away from all of that, but like in the hot spot, or like the hub of it, yeah, it was pretty bad. And it even smelled. Like you don't smell much at altitude. I feel like you lose
Yeah.
smell because definitely can't smell you or your teammates, even though you all smell awful. But like you get it, like I could smell all the trash, and I was like, ew, like it's really gross. But I mean, it's kind of hard to think what they could do. Nobody can stay up there and enforce something like that because it's right next to the death zone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is where I think that the industry is going to needs to self-regulate, and teams that leave a tent at the South Col is inexcusable, in my opinion. Not using WAG bags is inexcusable, in my opinion. There's lots of things that can be done with respect to taking down the feces that are already there. Again, this is very unpleasant, but this is the reality: is that it's frozen into the ground, so you'd have to take an ice axe and chop it out. Um, you almost would have to have a dedicated team that was talented and skilled and strong enough to go up there and do a massive cleanup. Maybe that'll happen one day. I'm hopeful, but probably the best thing for the future is to leave no trace forever in the future.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're in your tent. You kind of been lollygagging, sniffling, getting Garrett sick, taking a couple of strolls around. Then all of a sudden it gets dark. The sun goes down, and you know that you're only a couple hours away from beginning to go up the triangular face. You probably looked up at it and trying to spot, but all you can see is the south summit from the South Col. You can't see the true summit. So there's this mystery about, what does it really look like? Where's the Hillary Step? What's that Cordis Traverse look like? So let's go up to the balcony. What time did you leave high camp?
So I think I believe we woke up at 12 and headed out at 1. So
which
that's a
is
little
later
bit
than most teams do.
yeah, that is later than most too, but I think Garrett does that intentionally, right? Like he's
Right.
um but yeah, I mean, we got up. You can't really see anything. I'm just trying to get ready as fast as I can because I hate like being not ready when everyone else is ready because it
Yeah.
like I get like anxiety from it. I'm like I need to be ready.
Well,
Of course,
you don't want to be that guy on
yeah,
the team, just always
yeah,
late and unprepared. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm trying to get ready as fast as I can, but what I was having problems with is my hands would get so cold while I'm putting on my gear and everything, which is something that I was having problems with at like camp 3 to 4 as well. I don't know if it was like if my hands had gotten really cold from filming, and sometimes they would, but they would always go back to normal. Then if your hands get cold once, they're likely to get more cold the next time. So I think I kind of kept building off of not obviously frostbite, but just like the circulation was getting kind of poor in my hands. So in the mornings, I would do like half of a crampon on my feet, like I would get it on, and then I'd have to just like
Yeah.
put them
Yeah.
in, and it took a really long time for me to get ready. But yeah, I think we just left at we hit like the 1 p.m. time, and now we all had like personal Sherpas, so we tried sticking together. But as we were leaving,
Yeah. You spread
um,
out.
yeah, you end up spreading out quite a bit. So yeah,
So did you and Purba now, you're on this lightning fast pace. Did you pass people on that triangular face between the South Col and the balcony?
yeah. So we were the last to leave from our team, and Ferb was like, "Come on," and I asked him, and I asked him if it's like he prefers like Herba or Furba, and he was like, either one. So I think they go by whatever. But just so people know
Yeah.
that we're talking about,
Same
it's
guy.
Madison Mountaineering's lead Sherpa. But yeah, we were the last ones to leave. He was like, "Okay, come on." And I was like, okay, let's go. And it obviously starts off fine. You know, you can start off at a good pace at the beginning, but you're not really moving up anything steep right at the start. Yeah, it's like a very like tame. You're not even
Yeah.
on fixed lines for the first like 20 minutes probably, and then
Right.
you finally get to it. But yeah, I mean, we just started like passing anybody who had kind of been already there, and then we were moving up. And we got to the fixed lines, then we just kept moving, and we stayed with our team for the most all the way up to the balcony, I'd say. Then even before the balcony, and I recorded this, but there was like some times where he would just literally be like walking up the mound, but he was like digging in with his front points, like so he could go faster, like as if he was like toe striking while running. So I was like, okay, this guy. So I'm like keeping up with them pretty well, and when at nighttime it was cool. It wasn't too hot, but it was cool. So I was able to like keep up. Once we got to the balcony, though, we started passing like everybody, and then not everybody, of course, people left really early, but um, yeah, and then the sun started coming out, which was nice, and you can kind of see where you're gonna go.
Yeah, isn't that it? So you were on the southeast ridge when the sun started to come up. So you're
Yeah.
between now the balcony and the south summit. And I mean, in my opinion, this is the crux of the route because it's pretty steep. It's at a sustained angle. There's rock. So you got crampon on rock, which makes it more difficult sometimes. Other times you were so steep snow. But then, how did you feel when all of a sudden you saw that little sliver of light with the sun
Oh
coming up?
yeah. Yeah. So it's like you were on. I mean, what would you call that point before the balcony, like below the balcony, from like South Cole to the balcony? Like, what would that be called?
The triangular face.
Triangular phase. Okay, yeah. So that the whole time you're just moving up along this like steepish, it's a little rocky and everything, and you can't see anything. When you get the balcony though, you kind of actually like come over to where the sun was peeking out. So
Yeah.
like as you go over the balcony, the sun's peeking out over here, so you can start to see it a little bit more. So you get some food, you get some water, and you head up that ridge, which is like a beautiful part of the climb.
Yeah.
It's like mellow, it wasn't too windy or anything, and then yeah, the sun started to come out, which was very nice because it was very clear at that moment, and it was just beautiful. Like you could, and the thing I love to see, and kind of what was like, I don't know, it was like I can't. It was like you can't even like vision it, but the way that the sky is still purple, but the sun is really starting, like the snow is starting to collect the sun, and it just like pops out from the sky. And you could see it in my video. It's like you don't usually see like that in videos. People never record when like the sun's coming up and everything like that. So seeing that was really nice.
Super. So you make it to the South Summit, a little bit of a kick there at the end to get to the top of the South Summit. And at that point, did you kind of go, all right, I'm going to make it?
Yeah, like when you, because I was keeping up with Furbo and we were going fast, but it felt like a good fast. There's like fast when you feel like you're gonna throw up, but then there's fast where you feel like you're getting worked, but you feel it. You feel like, okay, I'm keeping up with this. I got this. So we had passed some people that were below the South Summit. There was a line that built up and we had to get past that. Now the sun was out considerably. And then you start to see like the actual summits, right? Like you start to actually see where you're going to go. And you haven't been, you're right, it was a mystery because it's crazy how you can't see the
Right.
actual summit and even really the Hillary step any time before that. So
Yeah.
it's like this mystery. It's like I got to unlock this part of the map type thing. But yeah, once you get up there, I mean, and you start to see that. And then I remember you telling me that that's like the crux of the climb. You were saying if there's anywhere you turn back before I had left, it's going to be before the South Summit when
Right.
it's cold, maybe a little bit windy, dark. That's going to be where you turn back. And then I got past that and I saw what was kind of left. And that was reassuring.
So then you go across the Cornice Traverse where it drops off on both sides. You know, it's interesting. I have zero memory of doing that, but we did it in the dark, which is probably good. But then you start approaching the Hillary Step, and all of a sudden these emotions start to bubble up inside.
Yeah, because it's like you see the Hillary step and you're thinking, I've seen this in all these documentaries and all these videos, it's the most iconic part of the climb, pretty much. And you see it right in front of your eyes. And it's you also kind of realize like I'm actually there. And I said this in my video, I was saying I've been training for this for a year and 4 months, and it's like kind of reality hits that you're there and you're doing this. So then we start going, you kind of come off that like Cornice you're talking about, you go down and then you're going to drop where a lot of teams store oxygen and everything right before the Hillary step. And as I was going down, I started to tear up a little bit for sure. Cause I felt good. Like like I said, anything can happen, but, I felt, I kind of had the feeling that we had this in the bag, Furbo was looking good. We were looking good.
Weather was
Um,
good.
yeah. And also there wasn't much lines. It was like, if I saw a huge line, I'd be like, like
Yeah.
no, it just looked like a pleasant climb up ahead. Not pleasant, but like
Yeah.
but the weather was starting to get a little bit worse at this point. Like once we had gotten over the South Summit, the clouds, you could see like this like kind of like menacing looking cloud come in. Not like menacing, but you could tell something was moving in on us versus how clear it was when we were moving up when the sun was rising.
Yeah, when you're coming up the Southeast Ridge, you're on the lee side of the winds. But when you hit the South Summit and you start going up the ridge proper, all of a sudden now there's nothing blocking you from the west. So that's when you start to really feel the winds picking up. Now, you crossed the Hillary Step before or after the collapse?
So before, because we hadn't heard anything about that, but then after we had gotten down, I think, or maybe Camp 2 or something, then people started to talk about that. And I think we were all talking about like, oh, where even was that? Like, because we didn't know, because we didn't have any, we couldn't access video footage yet.
So at that point, when you crossed the Hillary Step or the Hillary Slope, as I call it now, you didn't feel like you were on a cornice,
Um,
or did you?
I don't know. It definitely was there. Like it didn't collapse or anything yet. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think in the video footage, I wonder if I recorded where it would be. Maybe you could tell from the video footage, like
Yeah.
exactly where it'd be. But
It'd be interesting to go back and look at that. So you top off on the Hillary Step, and I mean, it's in the bag. So
yeah,
did you like run to the summit?
kind of. Well, there's like, as you're going up over I think it was so yeah, we got over like the Hillary step, and that was pretty fun, a little bit scary. But there's also like a body right above the Hillary step, I believe, which I think I don't know if it was the Kenyan climber or something like that, but
Yeah,
you had to go
probably.
around him, which is pretty. He's like right near the summit, so. But yeah, you had to.
So wait, so how did that? I mean, look, you're seeing a person that just died the last day or two.
Yeah,
How did that impact you?
that was the second one we had actually seen. The first one was on the triangular face, like really below. That one like was, and everyone on our teams, the first one, and it was in the dark. You shine your light on him, and his face was looking right at you, so it was like felt really personal, which was pretty disturbing. The guy all the way up top, um, he was a bit more covered by the snow, and has seen a little bit more weather, so it didn't feel as personal, and obviously that doesn't take away, the value of his life or anything like that, but it was like it didn't like get you as much as the first one. But yeah, it was like there's like no, you don't really have any words, but you can't really like dwell on that in the moment, of course, and let it get in your head, sort of, or else same thing could happen to you. But it is crazy to think. I was like, okay, this person is just like me. They were climbing the same routes. They thought they were going to summits. Then they ended up not. Well, maybe that one did. That was up high, but yeah, his face was kind of covered and everything. So, um, you can kind of I covered it up in my video because I was recording before we had gotten to him there, but I had covered it up with like a black box.
Good. Yeah, very respectful, especially for the family that may have seen it. A lot of times people take these pictures and they don't take into account the family, and that they
Yeah,
don't want to see their loved ones used as a landmark on a mountain. So, yeah, I think that you're right. I think that was CK or CJ from Kenya that you saw
mm,
right below the summit. So, and his Sherpa also disappeared, and they haven't found his body. So
yeah,
again, condolences to their families for sure.
yeah,
So yeah, so you take a few more steps, and what happened next?
yeah. You're just going over that ridge, and then you kind of see it's just like a nice, like not steep at all once you get into it, just like a nice like victory walk up there. And there's like a few more people on the line, and Furba, like we're like literally right there. The line is about to like 20 more feet, and he's like, okay, let's go. And he unclips and he just starts walking up to the summit. I'm like, all right, let's go. So yeah, then you're walking up there, but I said this in my video. At this point, we were completely clouded in. Not completely. There was some
Yeah,
cracks in the clouds and everything, but there wasn't really a view. I mean, you could see off into the China route and everything, which was really cool seeing that. Um, and then where you came from, of course, like a decent bit, but it was just clouds. And then on the summit, you see all the prayer flags, which is obviously fine. But then you see a lot of trash there too, which is like, are you serious? There's like Coke bottles, which doesn't weigh anything. There's no reason to not bring down a Coke bottle. But like the top was kind of littered, which I mean,
that's
it didn't ruin it for me, like obviously, and I don't think it would ruin it for anybody. You're on Mount Everest at this point. But yeah, I mean, I was just trying to. He's taking a few last steps to get up there. Then me and Furba stood on the summit.
how long did you say?
We stayed up there for a while because we were like quite a way ahead of like the like Garrett and all of them. But we got there, and I think it was like 20-30 minutes till the next person got up, and then I think it was like we were up there for a while. Like me and Furba, we were up there for over an hour, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so like it wasn't the best view, and it was cold, but it wasn't too cold to the point like you could get there and suffer it out until everybody got up there, because you want to share it with everybody, right? Like we weren't going to go down, and that people could say that's stupid, spend that many time up there, but or much time up there. But it was looking good. We were feeling good. We knew we'd get back down. We had oxygen, so
And you probably turned it down to one or something.
I don't think we turned it down.
Oh, really?
Because
Okay.
because I was only on my second bottle at that point because we had got up there in 5 hours. So
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I mean, most people they'll take 8 to 10 at the most. Most people, or a lot of people, are in that 6 to 7 range, which is what I was. By the way, at age 54, not at 19, I might add. But
that's like 2 hours at 19.
yeah, my gosh, Ryan, 5 hours. Yeah, I that's I just can't. I don't have words for how quick that is. That's amazingly fast.
Yeah. Well, I always tried to be conservative when I'm climbing, right? And I know like the number one way to get up a mountain is by conserving your energy,
Right.
and you don't want to. And I was thinking like Furbo was sending me on this run, and I was like, this is like a max effort run right now. Like we don't need to be doing this. But I was thinking, I have confidence in Furba. I trust him, and I was thinking like, why not just go with him all the way to the top? So I definitely could have asked him to slow down,
Yeah.
and I'd be feeling a little bit, I don't know, maybe like my pacing would have been better for the long term that day. But yeah, it was. I mean, there wasn't too many lines, and if we got stuck behind anybody, we just passed them if it was safe enough.
Right. Yeah. Mike, I'll say, all right. So you're 19 years old. You're standing on the top of Mount Everest, and you paid for it all yourself. You took every step yourself. You earned the summit. Has it sunk in?
Um, I don't know. Well, I don't really take into account like the whether or not like I funded it myself or how old I am. Because I think doing it at 54 is more impressive at 19, to be fair. I just had the opportunity to be able to do it because of the situation I was in and circumstances. But um yeah, it's obviously nice. I think like the rewarding part is just getting to the top, right? No matter what, no matter how you did it, no matter what age you are and what you go through, everybody's going to suffer out there. It doesn't matter who you are. And you go through these battles with your team and everything, and you get up there with your Sherpa, and it's like now you get to go home. That's also one thing you're looking forward to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, yeah, it's kind of just like it's end to a chapter once you get up there.
So most of the time, interviews like this end with, "Well, congratulations, Ryan. What's next? Take care." But no, we're going to talk about the part that few people talk about, the descent. So now you've got to basically retrace your steps all the way back down Southeast Ridge Balcony, South Col, Lhotse Face, Camp 2. We're going to spend the night, then your final trip through the ice fall. So we'll go through this relatively quickly, but let's break that down. So you leave from the summit, heading back down towards the Hillary Step, towards the South Summit.
Yeah, and my so I had Furba, he's our lead Sherpa. Then I also had a personal Sherpa, which I hadn't met before. Um, and honestly, I didn't even because I didn't know I was gonna have him until we started going up. But he was up there, and I think wanted to get to the summit, so he went with me. But I don't even know if I ever got. I feel like his name. He never told me his name. And I asked Garrett what his name was, and I think he said Pemba, but I'm not exactly sure. But this guy just started running down. I
The
recorded my
videos are
video.
crazy.
Yeah, he's going, and then he starts like clipping and unclipping for me. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let him do it. Why not? But yeah, we had a good day, and I was like, all right, let's get down. Um, and a lot of people were commenting on my video because I commented about how fast we were going. They're saying like, oh, the weather control, he's trying to get you down because of altitude sickness, which is true. But when you're going at that speed, then I think it becomes like a little bit sketchy. But I was fine, and it was all good. So I'm sure if was struggling, he would have slowed down and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, you got off the Hillary Step a little bit more scary going down, and it's also getting more windy now too. The weather has gotten like a tiny bit worse than what it was when we were on the
Yeah.
summit. And at this point, at this pace, I'm like really starting to like it was harder for me to go down than it was to go up by a considerable amount. So we were on the lines, and sometimes I just have to just going down like arm wrap, and I was like I just have to like stop, like just like give myself a few seconds before we continued. But yeah, it was just kind of slogging our way down arm wrap, all the way from the summit to the South Col.
And then South Col down a Lhotse Face at last time.
Yeah, that was also brutal because it was very hot. Like it was hot those days we were coming up, but the days after, it was extremely hot, and this would really like affect the ice fall
Yeah.
as we got down to it. But yeah, we got to Camp 2, and I was very glad because now they have chefs at Camp 2, and you get an actual meal in for the first time in like what is it, like
Yeah,
5 days or
5 days.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get down there, very hot still, and now you're gonna go from camp 2 all the way down to base camp. And the Khumbu Icefall was just demolished.
What do you mean by that?
So just the sun had started like really kicking in the past couple days, and I guess the icefall doctors won't go up anymore at a certain time. I think they were still active when we were going through, but they had definitely like laid off.
Yeah.
So there was like these cracks that had no ladders, and I recorded one of them. And it doesn't look that big in the video, but you really had to like jump.
Yeah.
And like Furba, I'm with Furba still. By the way, he's still hauling going down, but he jumps over it, and we have really big packs because we just had to take down everything from each camp that we might have left there. Camp 2, we left some stuff, right? Because we only went up in our down suit. Pack is just full. And also it has like waste that we had because we went in wag bags. Any trash, any like leftover like beehives, like we brought down with us. So now I have like 48 pounds. We're going to the icefall having to jump over these. I don't know how wide they were. I couldn't even say, but you had to jump. And then one of them had it was like a gap, and then it had a snow tower, snow platform, and then another gap. So we were jumping onto like this like melting snow little tower footstep, and you were just trying to like that was crazy. There definitely could have been a ladder there.
Yeah.
And then Furba like stops after we get over it because we just both kind of like leaped over it. Luckily I like jumping over stuff like parkour, that stuff. So I kind of enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, but he called up Garrett. He's like really bad, like crack, right at the beginning of the icefall, and this was right at the beginning. So who knows what it's gonna be like later on. So we waited he wanted to wait for some of our team to come down, make sure they get across safe, just in case he had to do a rescue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the icefall had taken a hit, and a lot of cracks had just opened up, and the ladders were all unbalanced because now the platforms that they were on were slanted or whatnot.
Yeah, this is the reason that on the south side, on the Nepal side, the season ends around June 1st because the monsoons are starting to come in. It's getting warmer as you approach summer, and yeah, it's the ice fall. It doesn't melt out, but it becomes more unstable. And at the bottom of the ice fall, there's actually running water now.
Yeah, there was a river, and we had to pass it. It's like you had to jump over these rocks on this river. It was a straight up waterfall.
So you pull into base camp. You're at now. You got your Wi-Fi back, so you can call home, call your mom.
Yeah.
And so now, in vogue these days is that people take helicopters to fly out, but you didn't do that.
No. I didn't take a helicopter out so after our first rotation, we came back down, got to base camp, and then we decided we were going to rest in Namche because Namche is just awesome, and also you get lower, your body's going to be able to recover. So I trekked down for that all the way from base camp to Namche while everyone else took the helicopter. But at the end, I did take the helicopter out. So I did the trek once, though. I did the trek once.
I thought you told. Okay, all right, got it. I misunderstood you.
Yeah.
So now you're back in Kathmandu, and you're gonna head on home. And when you got back to the States, what was the first meal you had?
What was it? I think I just had like what I normally like eat for lunch or something. It was just like chicken and rice. I honestly miss because I eat the same thing every day pretty much. Like dinner will vary a little bit, but every meal I just cook, it's the same thing. I like just the repetition, and I like what I make. So I kind of missed my own little meals.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to be eating those again. But
So
yeah,
like on Denali, you go to the West Rib and you have a big old hamburger, cheeseburger, and fries and beer. But you didn't go through Big Mac or get a big Whopper or anything, huh?
Yeah, we had a family dinner, and I may have gone a steak.
There you go.
I need to recover, so I lost 10 pounds, right? So, which is actually pretty good. Denali,
Yeah,
I
it's
lost
not bad.
15. I'll definitely take 10 pounds
Yeah.
lost.
That's really good. That's really
Yeah.
good. Because I normally say if you lose 10% of your body weight, then you may have a hard time being able to summit. So was your dog glad to see you?
Yes, very. I actually asked my mom, like, Cause I didn't, when you drive home and into the garage, they get all excited and then, but they're like overwhelmed by everybody that's coming in. So I actually asked my mom to drive up the driveway, come in, and then let the dog out. And I was gonna let him calm down a second so I could get like a genuine reaction from him. So I was at the end of the driveway, and then I came up, and he's going crazy. And then he's been really wanting to like, he's like, we have like 40 days of playing to make up for 50 days. So he's
A
been
little,
like bothering me nonstop.
little separation anxiety.
Yeah, exactly.
You were going to take a pic. What's the name of your dog?
Harley.
So you're Harley or
Yeah.
Harlem, Harley. So you're
Harley.
going to take a picture of Harley to the summit. What happened with that?
Yeah, it was pretty devastating. I realized like on the summit, I did it with the Aconcagua successfully, but I had a picture of him that I'd been keeping in like my like dental kits or whatever. It's just like a plastic bag, had my like toothpaste,
Yeah.
toothbrush. And I was just gonna like put him in my jacket and then take a picture of him when I got stopped, but I literally just forgot. Like I wasn't just thinking I didn't think it didn't come to my mind when I was going up because it just been like sitting there. Like I didn't really think about it the whole time. I was like, I'm just on summit day, I'll take it up. So that was a bit sad, but I figured out, I improvised. I brought up a picture of him on my phone and asked Furba to take a picture of me with it like next to me.
So picture of a picture of a picture. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. So it worked out.
So a couple of last questions. If you could summarize your Everest journey from the time you first thought about it till now, what are two or three keywords or phrases that you would use to summarize your experience?
Just life changing. Like that's the only one. Because like you remember when I came to you, I mean, I say this a lot, and I mean it shouldn't like this isn't something that you really should climb mountains for, but like I went from 217 pounds and I couldn't even run a mile to climbing Everest. I was 170 when I left. But and even just like getting outside my comfort zone, like doing some of that stuff, like going on these random mountains that I've never heard of before prior to this, climbing it with these people and really having to dig like so deep. Um, and to go through this period, waking up at like 12 a.m. Like it makes you feel like your body can do anything, your mind can do anything, and like if you put your mind to something, you can do anything. So that's really what I got from all this. And even if I hadn't summited, I still would have been so much of a different person than when I had initially started. Like I don't know what I would actually like just love to look into a crystal ball and see that version of myself that never went down this path and where I'd be at. And I just don't think there is a single better version of myself that I could have became unless if I had started going down this path. So when people ask like why do you do this? Why would you risk your life doing something like this? That's why.
Well said. Incredibly well said. So I wrote this essay years ago called "The Climber's Depression," and it goes through three outcomes that you did not summit, and it was not your fault. You did not summit, and it was your fault, and you did summit. But all three of them kind of had the same outcome, and that is that no matter who you're talking to, they always close the conversation with, "Okay, Ryan, so what's next?" So, Ryan, what's next?
Well, easy answer because there's two. I definitely want to do K2, and I'm considering that for next year, going with Mass and Mountaineering. They have a really nice operation there. I've heard a lot of stories from people who I climbed with. One person on our team did climb K2, and it sounds amazing. I really like the experience. It's a little bit more raw and authentic, I feel like, compared to Everest. So I definitely want to pursue that. And also one day want to do an unsupported, so no Sherpa, no oxygen of Everest because I know the route. And this is an attempt. When I went to Everest, I really wanted to make it happen, and I was gonna go to almost any cost to get to the summit. That's something that's like I'm just gonna attempt it because you're playing with a lot more fire there if you're doing no Sherpa, no oxygen. But I feel like it would just be a really amazing challenge to work towards. It would cause me to learn so much more about mountaineering, just surviving on my own, being self-sufficient. I just love the rawness of like carrying your own stuff and really seeing it doesn't matter and it doesn't matter at all if you like were to take but I didn't take any sort of like drug on Everest. So no Diamox, no ibuprofen if I had like a headache or anything like that. I love seeing what the body's naturally capable of. So I feel like that's just such a cool challenge to take on. But definitely think K2 before then to get the more 8,000-meter experience.
If you do K2, I am with you all the way, because then we would be
Yeah.
the oldest and the youngest Americans to have summited K2.
Really? Is it would I what would I'd be 20 by the time that
Yeah,
I
I
would,
think
well actually no, I might be when do you usually summit on K2? Like,
on my birthday, July 27th.
oh, so I would maybe be 21 by that point.
I still think you'd be the youngest. I'm pretty sure, but we'll have to double check that. Ryan, super job. Well done. I think you've shown people truly what is possible when you put your mind to it. As I said many times, you worked hard, you trained hard, you went mentally prepared, you went with mental toughness, physical toughness, the right attitude. I can't think of how you could prepare for Everest in a better way, but more importantly was the effort that you put into it, and um, just your maturity, your wisdom, your judgment, your tenaciousness. It's all just to be applauded. And my friend, you earned this summit. Well
Yeah, I
done.
was coached by the best. Come on now. All
All right, we're going to wrap it up then.
right,
Okay,
awesome.
namaste.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alan.